Hey guys, I'm Brittany from Quarter Acre Roots, where we talk about growing a lot on a little bit of space. It is currently mid-ish March, probably early April by the time this video comes out, in Maryland Zone 7A. So I am not doing a whole lot of planting now that I have my early spring garden in place. I am doing a lot of prep work. So today you're going to be joining me for some of my early season gardening chores. We are going to be putting together two things. First is a bean tower from Gardener's Supply Store. The second is the Titan squash tunnel from Gardener's Supply Store. And then I'm going to show you guys what I currently have in my greenhouse going for my seed starts. You can use the chapters and bookmarks below to skip around in this video. It's going to be kind of long as I wander around my yard doing a lot of thinking out loud and a lot of planning. I have a ton of stuff coming in the mail in the next few weeks that I need to decide where to plant. I've got 3 columnar apple trees, I've got some sea berry shrubs, and I have something very exciting, an American groundnut that I need to figure out where I'm going to put in my yard. I may be using one of these climbing structures I'm putting together for one of those. So admittedly, the bean tower was a little bit of an impulse purchase. I typically will grow my beans on this wooden obelisk trellis that I have, or I will use a cattle panel. Well, the wooden obelisk trellis finally fell apart last year after me zip tying it back together like 2 years in a row. So I was looking online for something at Gardener's Supply Store and came across this bean tower, and the reviews were really good. People were reviewing it saying that they had been using this tower for a long time and that it was really holding up to the elements. So I decided to splurge a little bit when I got the Titan squash tunnel and get the bean tower as well. Now I am opening it for the first time right now, and I thought there was going to be a lot more pieces to this bean tower. I'll show you guys exactly what it looks like when I opened it. So it's got like this round thing, which I'm guessing is the top or the bottom. It's got this one that I pulled out first. It's got 2 stakes right here, and then it's got a big thing of twine, which I'm guessing you redo the twine every year for your beans, and then you leave this in the ground. So let's take a look at the instructions. Okay, so we're right. There's an upper pole and a lower pole and some clips. So it looks kind of like this. Advantages: less space, no rot. That's a good one because mine was rotting and falling apart. Easy picking, easy installation, galvanized, sturdy, compact storage. I like all of these things for growing in a small space. And would you look at this? We now have an awesome piece of giant cardboard for some of our sheet mulching that I need to be doing in a couple weeks. I will have to take all the tape off of that and everything. But in the meantime, I will throw it in the shed with the rest. Because yes, I try not to recycle a lot of my cardboard as I get it. I like to use cardboard without tape on it for my sheet mulching. So what I will do is I will lay down cardboard and paper bags and things like that, make sure to overlap them, and then pile the mulch on top of that if I'm killing off areas of grass, or if I'm just trying to suppress really bad weeds in an area, or if I'm just trying to improve the soil a little bit, because unlike weed barrier fabric, the cardboard will degrade over time. So I love diverting it from my recycling bin and using it in the garden as a more sustainable method instead. Okay, it looks like this is supposed to be so simple to put together that even a dummy should be able to do it, but I don't know, man. I feel pretty dumb sometimes with stuff like this. Unfold base ring, slip spoke loops over lower hole. Lower hole. Oh, okay. So it looks like the big one goes on the bottom, and it says unfold the base ring and then take the bottom pole, and it says to feed that down through these circles. Whoopsie. Put it on upside down. All right, I have to correct myself. I actually got this from Gurney's. I bought this impulsively when I got a bunch of a new variety of strawberries that I'm waiting for from Gurney's. And I realized I got it from Gurney's because I looked up the instructions, because maybe it's just how my brain works, but I could not figure out how to use these stupid clips. It looks like this is how you put them in. And there were a lot of people in the reviews saying that they were confused about how to put this together too. So if that's you and you happen to stumble on this, this is how I put the clips in. It seems to be preventing it from now moving down. Now we have to put on the top part. So I'm probably gonna have to move my camera to show you guys what this looks like. All right, I moved my camera, so hopefully I have enough room to pull this back, but man, this thing is big. Keep in mind the bottom stake is going to go down in the ground quite a bit, almost up to the bottom of this. But I am about 5'10". Look how much taller it is than I am. So once it goes down to about here, it'll probably be just a little taller than I am, and you'll take string and tie the string from here to the top and just kind of weave it around so that it grows in like a pyramid. So I think that's gonna look really pretty. And I think I'm gonna use that for some green beans. I think I am gonna use it for its intended purpose, but I'm also thinking maybe I could use it for the American ground nuts because you're not supposed to harvest them the first year. So I'll probably just let it vine as much as possible once I get it in the ground, and it does vine and has really pretty flowers. So I'll have to think about that once I get the squash tunnel open, because I'm pretty sure I want to use the squash tunnel for growing loofah this year. Now moving on to our Titan squash tunnel here. This is what it looks like when you open up the box. So this is the netting that goes over it, which I was really worried about how long this would last. And a friend of mine actually is the one who turned me on to this squash tunnel. Sustainably Amber is her handle on Instagram, and I asked her how it's held up for her, and she said great. So that's when I decided to treat myself to this. So I set aside the netting, and I'm gonna start taking this out and figuring out how to put it together. All right, I've got everything out and organized, which I do recommend doing because it's kind of confusing. A lot of these pieces look the same when you just open up the box. So there's 3 arches, 6 angled supports that have this little thingy on the top, 9 male and 9 female cross braces down here, and then 6 of these staked supports that have thingies on the end, and then 2 of these leftover pieces. It says they recommend 2, potentially 3 people to put this together, but I'm an eldest daughter, so I'm gonna try and do it by myself. Okay guys, I quickly turned off the camera because I really battled this squash tunnel getting it together. I did end up having my husband help me with one part because my brain could not wrap itself around how these clip things work. So these are called shore clips, and they function like, honestly, kind of like paper clips. It's really, really hard to put these on, and my hands are like kind of torn up and probably gonna hurt tomorrow from it. So this squash tunnel is bigger than I thought it would be. Yes, I know there are measurements that I could have looked at. Yes, I know I could have taken those measurements and put them out here and figured out how tall it would be, but I'm actually really happy about it because one of the main goals of having this Titan squash tunnel is that I wanted something that was going to be better for tall people. So with our cattle panel trellis, I'll show you guys first the squash tunnel because I'm out here with it. I am 5'10", my husband's 6'2", so I'm in the tunnel right now. As you can see, there is a ton of room. If I stand still like this and stick my hand straight up in the air, I still can't even touch the very top of it. There is a netting that gets put on top of this for things to climb up, but I'm not going to put that on until I know exactly where I want to put the squash tunnel. Huge fan of this, very excited about it, but now I just have to figure out where I want to put it. So that is in comparison to the cattle panel. And in one of my previous videos when I talked about seeing and getting this Titan squash tunnel, someone just commented like $100 for that, like you could just do a cattle panel trellis. Yes, you can, and that is a great idea. If you don't want to spend $100 on the Titan squash tunnel, you can do a cattle panel trellis. This is a cattle panel right here. We have had this cattle panel trellis up for years. We just have it secured to little T-posts, fence T-posts here with zip ties, and it has held up really, really well, and it's awesome. But the squash tunnel is definitely bigger and it's a little bit more secure. So I'm going to be using it to grow loofahs, and I'm standing in the middle of the cattle panel trellis right now, and my head is probably a couple inches from the top. So when this is covered in plants, you can imagine that it gets pretty crowded in there. Like I'm kind of crouching down and walking through, trying to pick things once I've got green beans growing up it. And the cattle panels, they don't bear a ton of weight. They're very, very sturdy, but the wider base on the Titan squash tunnel means that it's going to be a little bit sturdier. So now that I've got these two things built, I can try and figure out where I want to put them in the yard to help me decide where I'm going to plant the things that I have coming this week. So I'm very excited to have those 2 chores off my list. Next up, I'm going to take you guys in the greenhouse. I decided not to heat my greenhouse this year because we had $450 electric bill a couple months ago, and that was not even running the greenhouse heater. It was just like normal living in our small house. So I decided, let's experiment this year and figure out how much I can get away with not heating the greenhouse. So I didn't really use the greenhouse for anything other than wintering over like some perennials. Again, it's mid-March when I'm filming this in Maryland Zone 7A. So today it's cold outside. Like, I took my jacket off because I've been working and moving around and my body temperature's been getting higher, but it's probably like 45-ish degrees outside and a little bit windy, but it is pretty sunny now. So the temperature in this greenhouse, even without heating it, I have the doors closed and it is 95 degrees in here, which is pretty wild. So granted, it does get cooler at night. Everything in here has been really happy. So I have a lot of my veg starts still inside under lights and on a heat mat because I'm babying them along, but I moved a lot of my extra vegetable starts out here because I want to see how they do in terms of growth out here on a heating mat with the high temperatures during the day and with lower temperatures at night. I've got a lot of random things in here. These are all like my new vegetable starts, all of the extra ones, tomatoes, peppers, etc. I've got some extra squash. Up here, I've got my extra eggplants and cucumbers just in these foil dishes that make bottom watering super easy. I just dump some water in and it soaks it up. And then I've also got some other random things that I have started digging up for the season. Some extra strawberry starts. I've got a little hardy kiwi vine back here. I've got some blackberry bushes, and these, they look like they haven't woken up for the season yet, but when I potted them up, I could see little nubs waking up for the season, so that's very exciting. I've got more strawberries down here, and then over here, I started a ton of chamomile from seed this year. I've got some butterfly pea. This is a really cool, they don't make edible peas, but they make really cool blue flowers, and blue is kind of like an uncommon color for flower, I feel like, but you can use the blue flowers to dye things blue, like it's bright blue. So you can use them to dye, like make teas and stuff. So I thought that would be a really fun thing to grow for my daughter to play around with. And also because since it is in the legume family, it is a nitrogen fixer. So I'm gonna be throwing those extra vines up everywhere around the yard. I think that's pretty much everything I have started in here in the greenhouse. Again, I have a lot of my flower starts and my tier 1 first string vegetables that are much farther along than these, inside still under lights, and I will probably bring those out here in another couple weeks. Oh, and of course I have my little sunchoke corner over here. One of the first things to sprout for the year. Sunchokes are a really awesome perennial crop to add to your edible garden. You can eat the tubers from the sunchokes. You prepare them a lot like potatoes. I've made sunchoke soup and stir fries with them. Just be forewarned that when you grow sunchokes, you have to want them pretty much forever where you put them, because they can regrow from like the tiniest little part. So once you put them in the ground, you have to want them forever. But the good news is that they are cousins of sunflowers, so they look really nice in your garden. They have like more of like a wildflower look than a sunflower that you might start annually from seed in your garden, and then you can just dig up the tubers of the sunchokes every year. I have most of my sunchokes in 2 very large containers here. So this one is a really deep container, which is awesome for growing root vegetables. And then this one is pretty deep, but also a little wider. So I put 2 plants in here. And this planter was a really great find from Costco this year. We are new Costco members, so I have been having a lot of fun figuring out what all the fuss is about with Costco. And I have to say, I can't believe we weren't Costco members sooner, because this giant pot, it is resin, so it's super lightweight, but it's really sturdy. Don't quote me to what this was, but I'm pretty sure it was like well under $20. I actually went and got a second one because I'm going to use it with a bunch of rocks in the bottom to mount a post and hopefully put a sun sail up in this area so that I have a little bit of a shadier work area over here, because we don't have a ton of shade in our yard. And also over here, you can see we've got some strawberries starting to come to life in this elevated bed. This is a bed on wheels that I really like having over here, because this concrete pad, obviously we can't plant on. So we use this mostly as like a work area. And then I'm starting to fill out some containers over here. I may move some of my green stalks over here as well, just to kind of maximize this space. And the fact that I have strawberries in here, I'm going to cover these with some hoops and some netting to hopefully keep the birds and the critters out of my strawberries, because when I had them over here between all of our asparagus plants, they were just getting munched up by stuff on the ground all the time, and squirrels were coming and feasting on them, and I just had a really hard time getting to the berries before nature did. So covering them and having them elevated here will hopefully allow me to monitor them a little bit closer and to be able to protect them and harvest them to actually eat them. Over here we've got some garlic that I planted last fall. I planted more garlic than I did the previous fall because we did run out last winter going through it. And then I also just threw some flowers in the ground over here. These are some daffodils and some hyacinths because honestly, I know they're not native. I know you can't eat them, and I really try and focus on that, but I just love seeing the green pop up in the early flowers every year. I just feel like it really, really helps me get to a point where I can see spring coming. I feel it coming. The garlic helps with that as well because they have really started taking off with all the rain and sun that we've had lately. This area is going to be a big focus for us this spring. This is the area where we dug out our previous pond, which was about 1/3 the size of this one and had a hardscape liner, and we replaced it with a softscape liner that you can kind of see peeking out right here. And that was just because we wanted it to be like more natural looking, more of a wildlife vibe. And so when the pond is full, you have areas down here where things can easily get in and out. We've already seen some birds playing around in it, which is awesome. We have seen some of the neighborhood feral cats in here having a drink when everything else is frozen because we got a little heater for it to keep our fish happy when we had some super duper low temperatures over the winter. And this area is kind of a disaster, as you can see, because we did this late fall and then just kind of decided, well, we're gonna plant in here, and then I didn't label, so I promptly forgot almost everything that I planted in here. So I'm starting to see it pop up and figure out what I put in here. Other than the big stuff, I have 2 black lace elderberries in here. I have a goji berry plant in here. I have a couple native grasses, a dwarf version of a Shenandoah switchgrass type plant. And then I've got lots of like yarrow, coneflowers, sage, stuff that I broke off from elsewhere in the yard and put in here. But as I've mentioned probably too many times, I have a lot of stuff that I need to put in the ground. And so I need stuff to start coming up so I can start making a map of where everything is, like either in my head or actually on paper, so I know what I can have room to plant in here, because it has a very open space right here. And this is going to be like one of the paths down from the patio. Originally, I was thinking maybe we could put the Titan squash tunnel here, but it's going to be way too big for that. So I think we will probably use our other cattle panel that I got last year and then never got around to doing anything with and just threw up on the fence here. We'll probably use that to put another arch trellis here and then maybe do the American groundnut growing on that, because that is such a pretty plant. And if we have it up here, it'll be easier for us to dig up in a couple years. Up here, we also have some plants that I'm really excited to talk about in a future video. I'm going to do a video all about the more unique nitrogen fixing plants that I've added to my garden, and this is one of them. It's kind of hard to see in this light, but it is just starting to bud up for the spring. This is a gumi bush. I think it's pronounced gumi. It's either gumi or gomi, but I have 2 of them, 2 different varieties that I found highly recommended. There's a red gem and the other one is a sweet scarlet. And these will get quite large and they have a really beautiful like silverish greeny foliage on them. So even when they're not producing berries, they're really pretty plants to have up like right around the patio. And they're also, like I mentioned, nitrogen fixers, which is amazing for the soil, and you can eat the berries. So it is not a super popular berry here in America from what I've read. It is more popular in like Russia and Ukraine, and a lot of the varieties that are available here in the States are varieties that were developed in Russia or Ukraine. So I'm super excited to try those out in a couple of years, but until they start growing actual berries, they will be beautiful silvery green shrubs. And it might be hard to imagine here, but my long-term goal is actually to have a kind of curved cattle panel trellis that goes from like kind of where that dark pot is all the way back to where that rain barrel platform is, and grow a self-fertile hardy kiwi vine. That self-fertile hardy kiwi vine is right here. And just earlier today, I was poking around on it to make sure that it was still alive and see if it had made it through its first winter. And you can see here, Can you see it's got a tiny little green bud on it? So it has made it through its first winter, which I'm very excited about. These are very vigorous growers, and they have really lovely scented really lovely scented flowers. So they take a while to produce fruit, but even before they do, this will be a nice privacy screen here. We are pretty close to our neighbors over here. So to have an edible privacy shrub will be really cool. So I probably won't build that trellis until next year or the year after, because they do take a bit of time to mature. In the meantime, I'll just give it something small to climb and hopefully get it off to a good start. And then maybe in a couple years, we will be able to pick our own kiwi berries. Which, speaking of kiwi berries in Costco, I saw kiwi berries at Costco the other day. Kiwi berries are not typically something that you will find in stores around here because they don't have a super long shelf life and they're not very attractive, honestly. They start to get like a little brownish very quickly, and they still taste really nice, but they don't look very pretty. And a lot of times people like fruit to look pretty when they're buying it, right? And especially if you're not familiar with a kiwi berry, you might not know what it should look like when you're buying it. So I was very surprised to see them in Costco. I usually can only find them locally at a little farm stand right near my house that gets them from someone who grows them on their property. And one of the things I really need to do is sit down and like really map out where everything is going. I actually had to create a whole map of my property for a permaculture design program that I just finished. I did all the training and I did my final project, and I just got permaculture design certified, which is very exciting. If you are new to permaculture, it's hard to explain. I will start rambling for like 15 minutes if I try to explain it right now, but it comes from the phrase permanent agriculture, and it's basically a super sustainable way of growing things. I'm a big fan of a lot of permaculture principles, so I thought it was something worthwhile for me to do in addition to Master Gardener. So I had to do a whole map of my property. So I used our drone to take a shot from above, and then I mapped out in Canva where everything is going, where we have things, and I'm going to be, when things pop back up for the year, I'm actually going to be, no kidding, this year, I promised myself writing down like where I have everything. We put in a bunch of blueberry bushes back here, but I do need to sheet mulch this area around these trees. And then I have 3 columnar apple trees that I'm going to be putting back here. They're really cool because you can plant them only like 2 feet apart from one another because they grow only about 8 to 10 feet tall, but 2 to 3 feet wide. So that's really exciting for a small space. And then this is our persimmon. We have some pawpaws back here. So eventually we really want this area back here to be completely sheet mulched with wood chips and kill off this grass, which is going to be a really big job. So I'm kind of dreading it, but I'm probably just going to be taking it in steps, like doing the blueberry area here and building out some of these fruit tree guilds we have back here. I also want to show you guys how well my spinach and arugula hung in over the winter. So I did a little experiment where I seeded spinach and arugula in here and kale and covered it over the winter and didn't even really water it, just relied on condensation. And it is mid-March here in Maryland Zone 7A, and you can see things have really taken off. So the bare areas I've just seeded with some fresh seeds, but I will probably start picking this arugula soon because it's looking really good, and the kale's looking great too. So I'm a big fan of covering your raised beds to help extend your growing season. I will shot it from the rooftops. If I can buy 2 extra weeks on the front end and the back end of the growing season, that's a whole extra month basically. And you don't have to use these fancy systems like I have. I mean, the brand Vego Garden sent me these covers to review, but I also use a plastic covering system for other areas that don't have those, and it works just the same. I mean, it's just a greenhouse effect, just like the greenhouse behind me. The sun does an amazing job of heating up an area under clear plastic, and even though those nighttime temperatures do still get low, oftentimes it's enough for your cooler weather crops to start and thrive a little bit earlier than they would if you didn't have that greenhouse effect. And finally, I've got my bulb onions planted in here. I did start those from seed this year. They're supposed to be a really big variety that is really good for storage. It keeps longer in storage. And I have my mesh netting covers over them because every other time I've grown bulb onions in the garden, they have just been destroyed by pests. Allium leaf miners are the worst. In the past, they've not gotten my garlic, so So hopefully I will stay that lucky, because I will be so mad if they get my garlic. But I'm hoping that having these covers on top will help me get more onions. I have a couple extra onion starts that did not fit into these beds, and I put them elsewhere in the yard because onions are actually supposed to be pretty good at helping to either deter pests or being kind of like a trap crop. So the extra onion starts I didn't really care about. I just kind of threw around the garden. I think I put some in my green stalks too, now that I've got 3 green stalks and a lot of growing space with them. So it'll be interesting to see how they do without any cover over them this year. And that about wraps up what I've got going on in the garden today, right now in mid-March, mid to late March, Maryland Zone 7A. I am going to wrap up here and carry this tunnel around my yard to figure out where I want to put it, because I really have no idea. I have no idea where I want to put it. I did not think about that before I ordered it and built it. And that's how a lot of things go with me in the garden. So I'm going to figure out where this guy goes and then wrap up my garden work day today. Until my next video, happy planting.